Goranga, Gaha Goranga, La Gorangira Namare. Jan Goranga Bhaje Se Amara Pranare. Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Goranga. Bhaja Goranga, Kaha Goranga, Laha Gorangira Namare. Jejan Goranga Bhaje Se Amara Pranare. Goranga Bolia Dudvahitulia Nyachia Nachia Vedare. Goranga Bolia Dubahutulia Nachea Nachea Vedare. Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga La Gorangira Namare. Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga La Gorangira Namare. Jejan Goranga Bhaje Se Amara Pranare. Goranga Bhajile Goranga Japile Hoy Dokera Basanare. 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 Bhaja Goranga Goranga La Gorangira Namare. Bhaja Goranga Go Goranga La Gorangira Namare Je Jangoranga Bhaje Se Amara Pranare Bhaja Gauranga Gauranga La Gaurangira Namare Je Jangoranga Bhaje Se Amara Pranare Je Jangoranga Bhaje Se Amara Pranare Jai Gauranga Jai Pataka Maharaj Gauranga Shamamridange Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Om Jnanatimrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Surupakam Bhaktavatara Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavadeshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Mande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanando Sahodito Kagdode Pushpavanto Chitro Shando Tamonado Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishe Namaha. English class? Prevodiš na hrvatski. English class. So, this past 2-3 weeks, we were discussing Chaitanya Lila on all the classes, Bhagavatam Gita classes. We had thematic, everything. So today we have 20 minutes time to talk about Lord Chaitanya again, about scriptures that tell us who he was, what he was doing. And I thought that it would be appropriate to talk about Lord Chaitanya's kirtan activity. Lord Chaitanya was doing kirtan. Kirtana means to worship together. With sound, chant. Who would suggest, who would say when Lord Chaitanya's kirtan activity began? Is not English. Any suggestions? When did Lord Chaitanya's kirtan activity began? It never began because it's always going on. But if you look at the lifetime, his appearance here, it begins at one point. He's born on Gaura Purnima, which was celebrating Tuesday. And then he disappears 46, I think, years later. 8. I think 46 years. 6 or 8. 6. I don't know. So when did in this pastime, in his entire lila of his appearance 537 almost years ago, when did it begin, his activity, and how? It's sort of a trick question. When he was a baby, we remember this pastime when he was a baby, he was a small child. Then when he had some problem and he started crying, creating disturbance, if you can say it like that. Children, they cry, they make noises, we don't really understand what they want sometimes. What was the response of everyone around? They learn that if they chant the holy names of Krishna, then he's gonna become peaceful. And Chaitanya Charitamrita, Chaitanya Bhagavata, this pastime is described, both these scriptures describe this pastime. And it suggested that it wasn't only when he was a baby, when he was already walking and talking. He was a little older already. He was a problem. I want this, I want that. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Oh, okay. Everything is fine. So that is his preaching. Kirtan began at that point. So then later on, although this is not a famous pastime, famous information, but before he went to Gaya, and we all know what happened there, he got initiation, and when he returned, he was shaved up, dhoti, kurta, everything, paka, devotee. So, little humor, wouldn't hurt. So when he came back, then he was really starting to manifest his devotee potencies. But before that, he was also discussing script. Before he was known as an academic, Pandit, he traveled East Bengal at that time, now Bangladesh, where his family comes from. A lot of his family comes from Bangladesh. So he traveled there, and it's mentioned that the holy names of Krishna were there also. As a scholar, he was discussing scripture, and if you're really a scholar of Vedic scripture, then you'll figure it out. It's about Krishna. Obviously, later on, when he started his pastimes, then he was recognized and he showed himself as a devotee, not an academic anymore. He said that the conclusion of scripture is connection with Krishna, bhakti-yoga. Sambandha is Krishna, Videya is bhakti and prayojana is Krishna prem. But there is mentioned that he knew that before he became devotee. Like Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, he knew that Lord Chaitanya later on when he was sannyasi, he came to Jagannath Puri. He knew that that was Mahabhava, that that's not an ordinary experience of Jagannath's darshan. If you come in front of Jagannath and you collapse. And then Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya could academically describe what is happening here. But that wasn't enough for him apparently. He needed some time to realize that devotional service is important for his whole life. Apparently Lord Chaitanya, he was known as academic and pandit, but he was also teaching about Krishna. But then he became known as devotee, and not so much as a scholar anymore. We know he went to Varanasi, he was chanting and dancing in kirtan, and there was very little interest. So it was a doubt, it's like we thought that sannyasi is supposed to be scholars. Why aren't you studying Vedanta? And they didn't understand that Lord Chaitanya has got superior knowledge from before. So he could, in one day, he made an impression on Prakashananda Saraswati and sannyasis, and they said, oh yes, finally we got empowerment that we can become devotees. So through kirtan, they were disturbed by the kirtan. Why he's not? It's like something is wrong. Why he's just chanting and his tears are coming from his eyes? And a lot of simple people, they join him, but none of the important people of Varanasi joined. So they had some criticism about his kirtan. But then things eventually turned in such direction that Lord Chaitanya took opportunity to meet all the sannyasis and then, but it was kirtan. Then he said, and then they said, so why are you not studying Vedanta? Well, my guru, he told me I'm a little bit, I'm not too smart. I should chant the holy names of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya went to Ishvara Puri and he asked him, why am I getting, mad by chanting? He said, oh, this is good effect. So he gave Guru, he checked his realizations and his experience of chanting of the holy name with the Guru, and Guru said, okay, this is bona fide. So then Lord Chaitanya, he continued showing ecstasy. Then when he became known as a devotee, he very quickly became authority. He became leader of devotees in Navadvip. And he liked Srivas Thakur, who was leader of devotees also. When Nimai Pandit, Gaura Hari, when he was still in the role of an academic of Pandit, then devotees, they wanted him to become a devotee. They thought, oh, he's so famous now. If this one would become a devotee, it would be great. And then when he did become devotee, they raised him and said, oh, yes, you're in charge now. So Srivas Thakur, he offered his house. Apparently it was big, suitable house to perform kirtan. And then they chanted holy names of Krishna, and Lord Chaitanya danced in ecstasy, and sometimes it appeared as if he is not dancing because he was showing symptoms of ecstasy, just like Lord Nityananda and all the close associates. They didn't want everyone to enter also, but there was always more and more devotees, and they were having kirtan mainly at home. They weren't very spontaneous. This was still a private thing to have kirtan. But we know in India everything is open because the climate is different. So you can't, nobody could see what was going on, but everybody could hear. The chanting of holy names in Navadvip was a new thing. We hear from the day of appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and even Muslims, for just in case, they were chanting and standing in Ganga. It's like two very opposing religions, if we can say like that. The Brahmins, as leaders, then they had their own communities, and Muslims, and these two were very different in their rituals and lifestyle. But still, on the day of Gaura Purnima, the original day, even Muslims, they were like, "Oh, you're chanting because of eclipse. Maybe that will protect us too." So it was a new thing. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had to come himself. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nahayanya. That to show love of Krishna and to give everyone the empowerment to chant the holy names. If the holy names were there, if Kirtan was there, why Lord Chaitanya needed to come? Because, if this is the same question, if Mahamantras got all the potency, why do we need to get Harinam initiation and Guru and everything? He's already there. And we also know that sometimes when there is no disciplic cessation, the holy name is hidden from chanters. They don't get the benefit. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it was the most important thing for him to appear. Even Lord Advaita Acharya, he said that I can't do what is required done here. The Lord himself has to come. Although he is the Lord himself in sense. But he wanted to get the nectar of prema. There's a whole chapter dedicated to glories of the nectar that the Brajavasis are experiencing. And Advaita Acharya, although he is expansion of Mahavishnu, he is Mahavishnu, also is Sadashiva, they're saying, but Sadashiva is Vishnu Tattva in his expansion of Mahavishnu, and also that particular expansion of Mahavishnu, there's two Mahavishnus. One is responsible for there are several causes to this world. One is efficient cause and one is material cause. And Mahavishnu is material cause and Advaita is efficient cause. So that's their connection to this world. So one of them decides to come as Advaita Acharya. So anyway, we won't go into the philosophy. We got another 10 minutes because we're taking early breakfast today. Because there is some restrictions. We can't go to perform in the city center between 12 and 4 o'clock, I think, or 3 o'clock. So we're going to start so we're going to be in the city center before 10. Because we have the actual center where there's most people and most Sankirtan most books can be distributed is from 10 to 12. So we're gonna start Harinam before 10, so we are there at 10 o'clock, so we have in the city center, we can go for 2 hours, and we can't use sound system. So we're gonna have the traditional way of chanting. There is this pastime when there was Ratha Yatra and there was all the associates and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, sannyasi already known. Then there was pulling of cart and the cart stopped and there was 1 or 2 groups of kirtan going on, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he engaged into management. He was a manager. He thought, he says, Chaitanya Charitamrita, he was thinking for a moment how to organize kirtan groups. So he organized 14, I think, kirtan groups while Lord Jagannath was sitting. Because if Jagannath decides to stop, then nobody can move. No, but they try to bring elephants and everything. Whole pastime develops there. There is instances in recent history also in front of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's house when he was a baby. Jagannath stopped. And then he received garland from Jagannath and his darshan, and then he moved. So this happened in Chaitanya pastime. Lord Chaitanya was thinking how to organize. So he decided who's going to be lead singer and secondary lead singers. Means that the lead singer is there was Mukunda and his Mukunda, Madhava Ghosh, Mukunda Ghosh and Vasudeva Ghosh. One of them was the lead singer and the others were accompanying him. So there was mridanga players, 2 mridangas, and there was dancer, lead dancing person. There was Nityananda was dancing person, Advaita Acharya was dancing person, Haridas Thakur was dancing. There is also, they were a little older by age according to pastime. We know that they're eternal, and their pastime is eternal, but in this context, they were a little older than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, so they were appointed dancers. Like Chandramali Maharaj, in his eternal lila, he manifests his body is a little old, but he's dancing like a child, like a young boy in kirtan, because it's kirtan. So you can see this relevance. So then there was from Shantipur, Advaita Acharya is from Shantipur, devotees from Shantipur, all came from Bengal to pilgrimage to Jagannath Puri. So there was, I think, 14 groups, and Lord Chaitanya organized this. He cared. So then when the kirtan started, he expanded into each and every group. And everyone was like around and was thinking, oh, Lord Chaitanya is in our group. So there was like the whole thing going on, no sound system. And it's described, now we can imagine something to imagine. The kirtans appeared like devotees appeared in 2 ways. One way was like they're many clouds together. Because the presence of devotees is very pleasing. Their charisma is very nice. Like you would look at a group of clouds. But on the other hand, their playing of instruments and their chanting was like very energetic. So this apparent contradictory contrast, we have contrast here. Contrast is also sometimes good for rasa. We mix 2 different colors which are opposite, like red and green, or yellow and red. And then we get something aesthetic out of it. It looks something as aesthetic. And in the same sense, when you look at these groups of kirtans, you saw a very pleasing atmosphere, spirit was raising. But then when you look at their bodies, they were like, whoa, Hare Krishna! It was intense. Dancing and jumping and falling on the ground, and that was the description there in Chaitanya Charitamrita. If you can imagine seeing this and imagine the sound, this would be completely different world for us. We are not used to such sounds, I guess. I didn't hear, but I can imagine it would be much different. They don't know at that time, they don't know sound system. And their voices are different. And they're very spiritually advanced. And Lord Chaitanya, Nityananda, and Advaita, and Srivas, Gadadhar, all of them are there. Panchatattva is there. They have their assignments set by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're in the kirtan. Oh, Advaita Acharya. We can imagine his voice was quite loud. He used to give Bhagavatam classes for a lot of people at the time. That's why he was Acharya, because he was giving Bhagavatam class all the time. In Srivas Thakur's house, at that time, there was more like this, okay, we do this privately. But sometimes there were some curious people, they were there. They wanted to enter. They got envious because they can't enter. VIP lounge. So they really wanted to see what's going on inside. So then we know in Sri Chaitanya's pastime, from time to time, he stops, he says, I cannot feel ecstasy. And then there's some issue, and then that's cleared. And sometimes there's one Brahman who was really, I cannot enter, I'm Brahman, I'm going to curse Sri Chaitanya, I'm going to curse Nimai Pandit. He's never going to be able to get anything. He's going to lose everything material. He's never going to be able to enjoy this life. There was Chapal Gopal, he was so envious of Srivas Thakur. Obviously he couldn't enter. Then he set up the paraphernalia. We discussed just the other day the details. I'm not going to talk about details. So there was some problems there. And there was problems with Kazi. And Kazi obstructed because they pressured him. He was like, whatever. But if they pressure him, then he would react. So there was like a lot of people tried to pressure Kazi in charge, Chand, Bhakta Chand. So they tried to pressure him. They were saying that Narayan is going to wake up if chanting is done inappropriately. Only Brahmins should chant because they know how. Then Narayan is not going to. Then the whole universe is going to be destroyed. And Kazi was, Lord, this pressure all the time, just frustrating. Then he went, now this is going to stop. And he ordered some people, they tried to stop. They broke into houses where there was kirtan and destroyed mridangas and instruments and everything. And said, this Sankirtan movement is going to stop. Nobody can chant anymore. And then Nimai Chaitanya Mahanit Gaura Hari Gauranga, he was like, okay, now we are gonna destroy Kazi. And the rumors spread that we are going to have a protest. What was that? That was actually the first official really big Harinam that was like done as going on streets and with the purpose of bringing everyone in. So there were like all kinds of people came from all directions, from distance they traveled, they ran to join Nimai. That we are gonna now achieve this. We're gonna get Kazi to give us back our permission. We're gonna destroy him. So they got angry. But the chanting of the holy names was going on, and the kirtan, this Harinam, is described to be very attractive. As soon as people heard that there is protest, there is this Harinam going on towards Kazi's place, and they were there, and they were chanting in different parts of town, and then they were, let's go! And then they came to Kazi's house, and then the pastime develops, and Kazi says, okay, I'm even gonna give you the banner of my family, so nobody is going to be able to touch you. So then he gives permission for Harinam. That was Leela that led to the point that Lord Chaitanya and Nityananda started doing Harinam in Navadvip. Nityananda was already there at that time, because Lord Nityananda joined Chaitanya a little later in the pastime, and he was already devotee, not when he was known as Pandit. So then Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes how did these kirtans look like when they went. They went to Harinam. It wasn't only night kirtans in Shiva's Angam anymore. It was Harinam on the streets. And because Navadvip is Gupta Vrindavan, which means hidden Vrindavan, Gupta means hidden. Then Sri Chaitanya, when he was dancing in kirtan, in ecstasy and everything, whichever part of Navadvip they went, there's an equivalent of Vrindavan. There's some places, Govardhan, some places. When Lord Chaitanya came to the place when there was Rasa Stali, he felt that kind of emotion of separation. When they went to some other place, Govardhan, and when different pastimes happened in different forests, Lord Chaitanya was responding to his emotion, ecstasy. He was responding according to the place and pastimes of Brajdam. Maybe somebody's now that we are talking about this, then maybe someone now when we go to Harinam is going to be thinking, oh, if this was Vrindavan, what would I be feeling? We can think of the holy name. Where there's holy name, there is person, there is his character, his nature, there is his pastime, there is his holy dham. Holy name never steps out of the holy dham. That's deep, huh? Holy name never, Krishna's name never stops being person. Holy Dham, he never stops out the whole Dham. Scriptures discuss this. First verse of Bhagavatam tells us that the Lord never steps out of his spiritual world. Even if it seems that he's here. That's by his yoga potency, yoga maya potencies. That's part of his lila. That he shows according to time, place, or circumstance. Then scriptures talk about him. But if he would be there, 5,000 or 500, when Lord Chaitanya, Panchatat was there, you would look at Lord Chaitanya and say, maybe this is time, place, and circumstance that he shows himself by his internal potency, but he never steps out of holy Nam, his holy Nam. So a few things about Harinam and Kirtan in Lord Chaitanya's scripture. Any comments or questions? So now is prasadam. Immediately prasadam is supposed to be already prepared. So when we go downstairs, we can take prasadam. This is our usual time is 9 o'clock. So we can have in mind that 9:15, everyone is ready. This means that 9:20, we go for Harinam. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai, Shri Panchatattva ki jai, Gaur Nitai ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna.